Jesse Minter just spoke about Nnamdi Madubuike, and what he said caught a lot of people off guard. After a neck injury that nearly ended the career of our best defensive tackle, we finally have a direct update from the head coach himself on how this recovery is going, and it's not the kind of news we expected to hear this soon. The thing is, a neck injury isn't something you treat lightly, and after a 2025 season that ended after just 2 games, nobody knew for sure when or if we'd see Madubuike back at full strength. So what exactly did Minter say about this return, and why it could completely change the Ravens' plans for this season? Let's rewind for a second, because you need to understand just how good this guy was before things went sideways. Madubuike made back-to-back Pro Bowls in 2023 and 2024, which is no small thing for a defensive tackle. That position doesn't always get the recognition it deserves, but 2 straight Pro Bowl nods tell you everything about where he stood in this league. He wasn't just good. He was one of the best interior defenders in football, period. That's what made 2025 so brutal to watch. Madubuike went down with a neck injury, and it wasn't a minor thing you shake off in a week. His season officially ended on September 29th, 2025, after appearing in just 2 games. 2 games from a guy who was supposed to be a foundational piece of this defense for years to come. And when you're talking about a neck injury, you're not just talking about missed time. You're talking about something that can threaten a career altogether. That's the part that had a lot of us nervous through the winter, wondering if we'd ever see Madubuike back on the field wearing purple and black again. So when Baltimore decided surgery was the path forward in April 2026, it wasn't just about getting him ready for this season. It was about making sure he had a real shot at a long-term future in this league. And that surgery is exactly where the story starts to turn a corner. Since that April surgery, Madubuike has been out of full contact work during training camp, which honestly made sense. You don't rush a neck injury, especially not one serious enough to require surgery. The Ravens took the cautious route, and given what was at stake, that felt like the right call for everybody involved. But caution doesn't mean things have been stalling out. Quite the opposite. Reports have made it clear that Madubuike is recovering faster than expected, and that's the kind of update that changes the whole mood around this situation. When a player comes back from a serious neck procedure ahead of schedule, it tells you the body is responding the way everyone hoped it would. One of the clearest signs of that progress came when Madubuike was activated off the PUP list. If you're not familiar with how that works, players on PUP can't practice, so getting activated is a real milestone. It means the medical staff felt comfortable enough with his progress to open the door for him to start working back in. And it wasn't just a formality either. Madubuike was recently seen doing individual drills alongside defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver. That's not just rehab in a training room somewhere out of sight. That's a Ravens coach standing on the field with him, putting him through actual football work. When you see that kind of image, you start to feel like this comeback is real, and it's getting closer by the week. That brings us to what Jesse Minter actually said, because this is where the real update comes in. According to a report from Luke Jones, Minter explained that both the medical staff and Madubuike himself are working together closely on this. He put it this way: both sides are really putting their heads together to make sure they're moving at a rate that everybody feels good and confident about. That single line tells you a lot about how the Ravens are handling this. This isn't a front office trying to rush a star player back for the sake of a training camp headline. It's a collaborative process, one where Madubuike's own comfort level matters just as much as the medical clearance. When a coach frames it that way, it usually means there's genuine trust between the player and the staff managing his return. Then Minter gave us the part everybody's been waiting to hear, an actual timeline. He said, ballpark. In the next couple of weeks, Madubuike will be starting to work himself back into practice. Think about what that means. We're not talking about a vague, he's progressing well type of statement. We're talking about a real window, one that puts him on a path to rejoining team activity before the regular season even gets underway. You have to appreciate how specific that is coming from a head coach. Coaches usually stay pretty guarded when it comes to injury timelines, especially with something as serious as a neck procedure. The fact that Minter felt comfortable putting a couple of weeks on it tells you the Ravens genuinely believe this recovery is on track, and that changes how we should be thinking about this defense heading into the season. Now, let's talk about why this actually matters on the field, because a healthy Madubuike changes everything up front. Baltimore has built its identity around a defense that can control the line of scrimmage, and Madubuike is a massive part of that. He's a guy who eats up double teams, clogs running lanes, and lets the linebackers behind him fly around and make plays. Without him, that entire structure gets tested. We saw glimpses of what life without Madubuike looked like in 2025. It wasn't pretty for a defense that's used to dominating up front. Losing your best interior lineman for basically the whole season is the kind of thing that ripples through every level of a defense, from the run fits to the pressure on opposing quarterbacks. That's exactly why this update means so much more than just one player's health. If Madubuike really is working his way back into practice within a couple weeks, that puts him on track to be ready for real reps well before the games start counting. That's a completely different outlook than where we were even a month ago, when full contact work still felt like a distant hope. Getting your best run stopper back in the middle of the line before the regular season is about as good a scenario as Ravens fans could have asked for. And I think it's worth pointing out how much confidence this should give the rest of the defense. When your anchor up front is trending toward a full recovery instead of a lingering question mark, everybody else in that unit can start planning around a full-strength front seven. That kind of clarity matters more than people realize heading into a new season. Here's where it gets even better for Baltimore, because Madubuike isn't the only piece of good injury news the Ravens picked up recently. Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins both returned to practice after injury scares that had kept them out of Baltimore's first preseason game. If you know anything about the secondary, you know how important those two names are to what the Ravens want to do on the back end. Think about what it means to have your top defensive tackle trending toward a return and two of your key defensive backs already back on the practice field. That's not a coincidence you can ignore. That's a defense that, on paper, was dealing with real uncertainty just weeks ago and is now stacking positive updates across multiple position groups at once. For a team that's built its whole identity around defense for years, getting this kind of momentum before the regular season starts is exactly what you want to see. It's easy to focus on one injury update at a time, but when you step back and look at the bigger picture, Baltimore is quietly putting together a defensive unit that could be closer to full strength than a lot of people expected this deep into camp. And that's really the story worth watching as training camp winds down. Every update like this one adds another piece to a defense that, when healthy, is capable of carrying this entire team. The question now becomes how quickly the Ravens can get everyone from individual drills and limited reps back into game-ready shape once the regular season actually kicks off. When you put it all together, this update from Jesse Minter is about as encouraging as it gets. Madubuike is off the PUP list, doing individual drills with the defensive coordinator, and according to his head coach, could be working himself back into practice within a couple weeks. That's a massive turnaround for where things stood after a neck injury threatened to end his season, and possibly his career, back in September. What this really means for the Ravens is a defense that's trending back toward full strength at exactly the right time, getting your best interior defender on a path to return, alongside Humphrey and Wiggins already back in the mix, gives this unit a chance to look like the version of itself that Ravens fans have come to expect over the years. That's the kind of news that shifts the entire outlook for this defense heading into the season. So I want to hear from you on this one. Do you think Madubuike gets back to full speed by the time the regular season kicks off? Or is this recovery going to take longer than that couple-week window suggests? Drop your take in the comments. I'd love to know where you stand on this.
And if you're a true Ravens fan and love keeping up with everything happening around the team, don't leave this video without sharing it with a friend who's just as passionate. They're definitely going to enjoy this. See those videos on your screen right now? I picked the first one especially for you, and the other is recommended by YouTube. Go check them out and I'll see you in the next video.